Tainted Glove Network presents Yumper and Svo at the Show podcast with Tom Yumper Garcia.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
And Justin Svo Svoboda.
From the prime time, bitch!
Two guys from Chicago talking movies.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 17 of Yumper and Svo at the Show, presented to you by the Tainted Glove Network. I'm Tom Garcia, one of your co-hosts, a.k.a. Yumper, and I'm with my other co-host, Justin Svo Svoboda. How you doing tonight, Mr. Svoboda?
I'm better than Michael Myers in Halloween Ends. How about you, Yump?
I assume you're a lot better than how it is than him. I'm doing all right, man. Just a little tired, but cranking it through.
Yumper's been cranking it. All right, for sure. If you've been paying attention to the website and the blogs, Yumper's doing the 31 Days of Horror, and he's been killing it with all these different movies.
Yeah, just something, we're both passionate about, movies and horror movies. So I figured I'd try something new and try to do 31 vlogs in a month. And or it's number 24 tomorrow. So 7 more to go after this one.
Yeah, not many more to go, which is good. Then you can take a break.
Yeah. But we got an action-packed show today. We're going to be reviewing the Halloween series minus Halloween 3, although it is a good movie, but it's not part of the Michael Myers anthology of movies. But before we get into that, we actually have a big announcement. Swole, do you want to do the honors?
Absolutely. We want to introduce and welcome to the Tainted Glove family, Brian, a.k.a. Magnificent Stand, who will be joining us with a podcast of his own and writing for the Tainted Glove and contributing. And he will be recording here soon his first introductory podcast called It's Drafty in Here. Is that what it was called?
It's getting drafty in here. Yes,
It's getting drafty in here. Brian, do you want to talk about the premise of your podcast? And
Yeah.
for it?
I wanted to do something a little unique, something a little different that you don't really see too often. So one of the things that I like to do with my friends back in the day was to just draft random things, random movies, find a topic and then just go over it with your buddies. Obviously, when I did it back in the day, a lot of drinking was involved, but it always created a lot of conflict, created a lot of conversation, some hot button issues. And it was just a fun way to have a conversation. And to be honest with you, I've been wanting to do a podcast for many, many, many years, and I just never really got off my butt to do it. I was always kind of overwhelmed with the technical end of it, and Yumper's been helping me a lot. And you guys, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you guys bringing me on and helping me along the way. And we're gonna have some fun.
Yeah. Now the draft aspect of it, will it be different topics every week?
Yeah.
Because it's gonna be kind of gonna be like hodgepodge, right? Like it's not gonna always.
Yeah,
be...
like I'll give you example is the first one we're gonna do is gonna be Chicago sports goats. So I'm gonna have people on. Well, I'm gonna have you guys on, and we're gonna draft who we perceive to be the Chicago sports goats. I assume first couple picks are gonna be pretty obvious, and after that, then that's when the wheels start coming off, and some debates will start to happen. And then the random variety of them. I was gonna try to before Thanksgiving. I was gonna do like a Thanksgiving food draft, and it's gonna be all over the place. There's gonna be some music. I'm trying not to step on your toes and do movies too often.
Yeah, stay in your lane, bro.
Lots of sports. I'll probably have some people on to do some wrestling ones. My goal is to try to just broaden it and get a lot of people into it, not just a specific genre of people.
I like that. I like that. Now this is your first podcast, right?
Yeah.
Is there any?
Right now is the first time I've ever been on a podcast or done a podcast. So yes, this is
Wow,
um yeah.
Yumper and Svo popping cherries over here.
Yep, diving in, man. I'm gonna give it a go and go from there, you know.
That's awesome. We're very, very excited to have you on. Yump,
Awesome.
do you have any questions or anything like that?
No, I don't. Actually, Brian, really happy to have you on. Looking forward to working with you. Um, really glad you decided to come on with us at the Tainted Glove Network.
Absolutely.
Um, Brian actually will be having a blog drop tomorrow
Tomorrow
because
morning.
we're recording on a Sunday. So tomorrow at 9 a.m., there's gonna be a blog dropping about his show. Be sure to check that out. Brian, why don't you give everybody your socials where to follow you at?
Sure. My Twitter is at Magnificent Stan. And then my Instagram, very long, annoying Instagram. I should probably just make an Instagram specifically for the podcast, but it's TheSchMaranz. So that's got to change though.
Yeah, and his profile's already up on the Tanning Glove right now. Once Brian gets his show rolling, we'll have a page for him where you'll find everything like you do for Yumper and Soul and the Tanning Glove Mothership. Again, Brian, thank you so much for joining, man. We're really looking forward to working with you.
My
And
pleasure. Love you guys, and looking forward to getting it going.
yep, and best of luck with everything, my man.
Later, brother.
Thanks, Brian.
Man, Tanning Glove and network making moves.
Yeah, expanding. We don't just bring anybody in too. So it was something that we had to, like, all four of us had to be like fully in sync on. So it's a big deal to have Brian come on. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and Brian's very passionate about what he wants to do. So just check him out and give it a listen. He's already come up with some topics he talked with us about it. So looking forward to see how his show goes. But with that, so well, let's get into this week you got unfortunately the HIV, the COVID that is, uh, and you actually were watching a ton of movies. So why don't we go into what Swole was watching, COVID edition?
Yeah. So I stuck at home for the last 8 days. Work won't let me come in. Obviously we don't want to spread the vid, but I've had to do was watch TV and watch movies. I knocked out a bunch of movies, along with a lot of Jersey Shore reruns. I'm embarrassed to say it, but it's a guilty pleasure. One of the first movies I watched was Emily the Criminal with Aubrey Plaza. Really, really good movie. I really enjoyed it. She kind of gets sucked into the underground world of like credit card scams and like retail merchandise theft, and she becomes like the ringleader. It's pretty good. I really enjoyed it. If you get a chance, check that out. The second movie I watched called England Is Mine, which is a music biopic, about the origins of the Smiths and Morrissey's younger life. I'm a big Smiths fan and a big Morrissey fan, so this was cool to see. I've seen it a couple times before, but it was a great time to rewatch it. I also watched Crawl, which was like a hurricane alligator movie. Barry Pepper was in it. Really corny, really cheesy, but cool premise. I thought, she has to go rescue her dad in the house in the hurricane, and the alligators kind of take over, and they're swimming everywhere. They're in the basement. It's a cool flick. I like it. I watched Vengeance with BJ Novak on the recommendation of Fids. It's streaming free on Peacock if you have Peacock. Really, really good movie about. Um, I guess Fids described it really, really well, like dealing with loss and things of that nature. BJ Novak directed it. Fantastic. I rewatched Clerks 3. It's the first time I watched it since we saw it in the theater. I watched Batman 3 times because I love Batman, and it's like a security blanket for me to put Batman on and just kind of like fall asleep. I watched Good Time, which was the Safdie brothers movie with Robert Pattinson, where he just plays this dirt bag, like low life criminal. I watched Terrifier for the first time. That movie is disturbing. I put that on after I took like 2 shots of NyQuil, and I had some messed up dreams. They weren't about the clown, but it was a cool experience. I watched this movie called National Champions with what's his name, J.K. Simmons. and it's about the national championship in football game when the star player decides to sit out and strike. And then I watched This Is Where I Leave You, which is a really, really good movie that I saw on a date with my wife. And the cast is fantastic with Tina Fey and Jason Bateman. And um, why am I having a brain fart here? He played Adam Driver. Adam Driver's in it as well. You know, the father dies and they have to sit for this the 7 days Shiva, I think is what it is. Really good movie about family and loss. I just really enjoyed it and I try to maximize my time. Having COVID sucks, but having COVID when you are a movie lover is ideal because you could just sit and watch movies. And these are just some of the movies that I knocked out these last 8 days.
It's a lot of movies, man. How many times is this for the Batman?
It's at least 100. Like I've seen this movie so many times.
I had to see the count on that. But Vengeance, I know Fitz has been talking that movie up, and now you're saying it's actually pretty good. I
He
thought,
was not wrong. He was wrong on that Nicolas Cage movie by a lot, but he was not wrong on this Vengeance movie. He was absolutely spot on. It's not action packed, but it's very thoughtful. It's very insightful. I really, really enjoyed it.
yeah, I think the previews to it kind of did a disservice if that's the case. I'll check it out because you guys are telling me it's good. But like the previews didn't make it too interesting. But now that you're saying it's a pretty decent movie, I'll check that one out.
Yeah, it's a dramedy. You know, like I said, he's this kind of like, you know, dirtball, late 20, 30 something like guy that lives in New York and he writes for the New Yorker and he hooks up with this girl and she passes away, but she tells her family that they were dating. So he's got to go down there for the funeral and the wake, but it's a whole thing and it evolves and it's really, really good. I would highly recommend it.
Cool, I'll definitely check that one out. Um, but what I've been watching, as you said in the beginning, I've been pretty busy with everything. But I watched two of my old reliables. The first being the 1988 classic Young Guns with Emilio Estevez, Keith Sullivan, and Lou Diamond Phillips. I'm a big sucker for westerns, and I love this movie, especially now since I found out they're coming out with a third one with the original cast returning. I'm really pumped for that. And then I watched another classic of mine, Flashpoint with Donnie Yen and Colin Cho. It's actually has one of the best fighting scenes in movie, I guess, Hong Kong movie history between Donnie Yen and Colin Cho. If you don't know who Colin Cho is, he's actually one of the characters from The Matrix. I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but he fights Neo in part two. He protects the Oracle. So awesome movie. It's about a cop who goes undercover and his partner is trying to get him out. Very good movie. I think it's on Netflix, so you can watch it for free. Um, have you seen any of these movies, Will?
Young Guns is when you say old reliable, I love that movie. I can't tell you how many times I rented that movie and watched that movie. I think the cast is fantastic. And I'm not usually like a westerns guy, but this movie, like Young Guns and Young Guns 2 was awesome. I've never seen Flashpoint. Um, I'm not even going to pretend to know anything about it.
Yeah, I really got into Donnie Yen, like his career, and I watched a lot of Donnie Yen movies. This is one of his better ones. He's known, I guess, an American audience for Ip Man, but he has like Bodyguards and Assassins is a great movie about history of China. Like he has a lot of good like historical pieces, and he has good action movies, and this is one of them. So I recommend if you want like an action packed movie, just check out Flashpoint.
You definitely like have types of movies that you like to watch.
Yeah, yeah, I do. I totally do. So let's actually move on to what we're going to be talking about for this episode. So as we said last week, we're going to be doing a deep dive into the Halloween series, excluding Halloween 3. So Chirizi, we both like that movie. It's just not part of the Michael Myers anthology, so we're going to skip it for this one. But you ready to get into it, Swell?
I'm so ready to discuss this and discuss all the installments, including the final one. Yes, let's do it.
All right, let's start off with our first one.
Man, I saw him outside.
There was nobody outside.
There was
What did he look like?
the boogeyman.
1978's Halloween, directed by John Carpenter, with a screenplay written by John Carpenter and Deborah Hill. The movie stars Jamie Lee Curtis, Donald Pleasence, and Nick Castle as Michael Myers. It had a budget of $325,000 and made a whopping $70 million, making it one of the most profitable independent films. So, tell me about the original Halloween.
I mean, what can I say about this movie that hasn't been said already? Um, Michael Myers still to this day scares the crap out of me. Like, my wife was away at a wedding this past week, and I had the house to myself, and I still checked all the doors and all the windows because it's October, and that's when Michael does his thing. The movie uses so many different ways to build the tension, the music, the way they hide Michael, the way that he doesn't reveal his face. To me, this is the ultimate horror movie. It doesn't get any better than this. And I know that we had disagreements. I don't know off or I think it was last week's episode where you said Freddy and Jason were like horror icons. Michael to me is the ultimate horror icon. This movie is absolute perfection. I love it. I watch it every year, but I can only watch it from October 1st to October 31st. Um, and that's just because of my traditions. But I love this movie. It's perfect.
Yeah, I think this is a resounding, 10 from me for in terms of Halloween movies and horror movies in general. This movie actually like started a trend of the slasher era. This movie put stamped it out with John Carpenter's vision and Deborah Hill's vision. John Carpenter produced the music, that we know. It's a very good movie. It's shot very well. It doesn't have a high body count, which is actually pretty good to show how great this movie is. You don't need a bunch of kills to get your message across. It's a very slow burn. You have a young Jamie Lee Curtis who was 19 when this movie was made, who did an excellent job in it. Nick Castle, who plays Michael Myers, does an excellent job in it. Donna Pleasence, who's Dr. Loomis, did an excellent job. And it's kind of funny that when I was doing research for the show, I found that John Carpenter actually offered the role of Dr. Loomis to Peter Cushing first, and he turned it down due to salary. And then he went and offered it to his co-star, Christopher Lee, who also turned it down. And Lee actually admitted later that it was his biggest mistake of his career turning down this movie. And on top of that, so last week, how we had that connection with, Johnny Depp going to his audition with Jackie Lee Haley for Nightmare on Elm Street, right? And then Jackie Lee Haley played Freddy. Well, we have a Freddy connection with this movie. Robert Englund worked on the set for day one. He was one of the guys that threw down the leaves for the set prep.
That's fantastic. Um, I love that you find those little tidbits like about stuff like this. I don't necessarily do the research like you do for like fun facts about the making of the movie. I rewatched the movie um, and I discussed the actual film, but like you find the coolest shit like when you're doing that. Yeah, I just think that this movie set the standard of what a movie should be. The body count isn't high, like you said, and it's not super gory like some other slasher movies become. But to me, like the music is great, and the way that they hide Michael in the shadows is perfect. And I think I know you said it was a $325,000 budget and made 70 million. I think until the Blair Witch Project came out, it was the highest grossing horror movie of all time.
Yeah, an independent film. And I think after Blair Witch, Paranormal Activity blew that one out of the water.
Which
I
is
think that
another. I think
yeah.
I know people have their opinions about those movies, but I think Paranormal Activity is another movie that I absolutely love.
Yeah, I really liked the first one. The first 2. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, like you said, this movie, the way it opens, the opening is, done perfectly with the candle and the pumpkin. They say that if you look at it a certain way, you can actually see Michael holding a knife, and that was actually carved out by the guy who directed Halloween 3: Season of the Witch, Tommy Lee Wallace, who worked on this movie, which I thought was pretty cool.
interesting. I'll have to go back and rewatch and look for him in the pumpkin. I've never heard that before.
Yeah, I guess when it goes to the side and it shows the side of the pumpkin, it looks like his face with a knife. So, um, but yeah, this movie is perfect. I love it. It's awesome. There's not just so much more you could say about it, but we don't want to make this a 4-hour podcast. So let's move on to our next
Fun
one.
fact before we move on. When I was in high school, my friends and I were nerds, and my buddy was obsessed with this movie. It's his favorite movie, his favorite series. He had a mannequin with Michael's jumpsuit on and a mask that he would put up in his room and have it decorated year round, right? Some real weird shit. When we were in high school, he had surround sound system throughout his house. He used to dress up as Michael and turn all the lights off and play the soundtrack, and he would hide in the house, and we would have to like walk in and he would scare us, and it became so popular that like girls started to like come over and like, hey, can we come over and play the game with you? Like it was like a legit thing. um so kind of cool. Just a stupid memory from my childhood, but the movie inspired it. So let's move on. I'm sorry,
No, no, that's totally fine. No, that's what we do for personal experiences. But let's move on to our next one.
Call the police. Tell the sheriff I shot him.
Who?
Tell him he's still on the loose.
Is this some kind of joke? I've been trick or treated to death tonight.
You don't know what death is.
Halloween 2, released in 1981, directed by Rick Rosenthal, who also directed another movie in the series, Halloween Resurrection. It was written by Deborah Hill and John Carpenter in terms of screenplay. And this movie stars Jamie Lee Curtis reprising a role along with Donald Pleasence, and Dick Warlock takes the role of Michael Myers. Movie had a budget of $2.5 million and it made 25 at the box office. So, tell me about Halloween 2.
So we talked about this a little bit before we started recording, but to me this is the ultimate sequel. I love this sequel. It takes place the exact same night. There's none of this 6 months later bullshit. It takes place the same night with Laurie in the hospital, and Michael is stalking her in the hospital. And it was like just a great way to show just how relentless he was. He followed her to the hospital. He wasn't done with the job yet. He knew that he had to kill Laurie Strode, right? I think this movie is the perfect sequel. It has some really memorable moments. When he kills the nurse and paramedic in the hot tub while they're getting it on in the hospital. Like he turns up the heat on the hot tub and like boils them essentially. Another scene that stuck out with me was the little kid biting into the taffy apple and the razor blade in his mouth. Like those scenes stuck with me, and they still do. To me, this is what a sequel should look like, and I love it. Like if we're going on a scale of 10, like this is an 8.5, 9 scale, only because it's not the original.
Yes, the razor blade made me laugh because I had just watched the 108 from the 108 podcast. Shout out to them. And they did a Halloween draft where they mention the stuff they're tired about hearing for Halloween. And it's the razor blades and candy and, taffy apples. And that scene made me crack up because there's never been a reported case of that ever throughout the US. But it had it in the movie, which cracked me up. But I love this movie. I like this sequel. When doing research, I found that John Carpenter didn't want to do it. Him and Deborah Hill, they wrote the script for it.
He hates it.
Yeah, he said that he didn't like it. They actually were drunk when they came up with the idea of it. The fact that Laurie is Michael's sister was just something they came up with. And he actually did a re-edit of it because he wanted to add more gore and blood to the movie, while Rick Rosenthal wanted it to be more traditional to the original, which is why a lot of the shooting is actually the same. If you look at the original and this one, it's a lot of first-person perspective, walking and whatnot, which I think is beautifully done and pays a lot of homage to the original. But like Carpenter just didn't know what to do in terms of the last one blowing up to success. He was kind of scared that would people go see this one without the blood and gore and nudity in this one, which to me was pretty crazy that he did that. But Rosenthal got his chance to direct his own version of it, but they both didn't like it in terms of Deborah Hill and John Carpenter. It's a good follow-up. I think it's better than some of the sequels going forward. I would say this is the second best sequel in the series, if we count them as sequels. But I think this is like a good movie to go. But 1 and 2 are like the epitome of the Halloween series, in my opinion. I think it's very good, and I really like this one. But let's move on to our next one. Halloween 4, The Curse of Michael Myers, released in 1988. It was directed by Dwight Little, who also directed Brandon Lee's Rapid Fire. He directed Murder at 1600, Anacondas 2, and Deep Blue. This movie stars Donald Pleasence, Danielle Harris, and Ellie Cornell. The movie had a budget of $5.5 million and made 11.6 at the box office. So, tell me your thoughts of Halloween 4.
So, a couple thoughts right off the bat. First of all, if you're watching the YouTube version of this or you're listening, whatever, take a look at the official movie poster for Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. And the mask in the movie is clearly a bait and switch. This is not the mask that they used in the movie. The mask that they used in the movie is just an awful piece of shit, like bright white. Like, it also introduced him as the first time he's referred to as the Shape on the screen. Now, he might have been listed in credits as the Shape in the other Halloween movies. He was never referred to as the Shape. And it started this whole weird subplot of Michael Myers. This movie, do you have a TikTok, Yumper?
Yes, I do.
Have you seen that TikTok where they rank things and they're like the one of them's like woo
Yeah.
woo, and then the Rock comes on and he goes, "This is the biggest piece of shit
Yeah.
I've ever seen. This is a terrible movie." Like the poster and the previews Michael is so menacing, and in reality, in the movie, he's like a 165-pound weakling. Like, he is not scary in this movie at all, and I hate this movie. I hate 4 and 5. It also, there's no Laurie Strode. It brings in her niece. So this is where the Halloween mythology takes like a weird, like, the family tree branches off into like two different things. I hate this movie. How about you?
I didn't enjoy it. It's actually her daughter. Uh, Danielle Harris is her daughter.
Yeah.
And, this movie to me, it was so after Halloween 3 was made by Carpenter and Hill, and the Halloween series wanted to be an anthology of Halloween movies. When John Carpenter and
Like
Deborah Hill,
Trick or Treat.
yes, when they decided to do this movie, the first Halloween, they thought it would end there, and then they would go on to another movie that had to do with the Halloween series, which is what like Halloween 3 was. Well, when Halloween blew up, they made Halloween 2, and they killed Michael Myers in Halloween 2. He burned to death. If you haven't seen it, spoilers, but the movie's like 40 years old, so I'm sorry. But him and Dr. Loomis both die in the hospital, and this kinda, like, shies away from that ending, and somehow Michael's alive, and it's to me, it's very, very badly done. I think the saving grace to any part of this movie is Danielle Harris's acting as a kid actor. I think she does a great job. Uh But yeah, the mask is horrible in this movie. There's actually a part in the movie where he has a pink face and white hair, and they didn't edit that part out. It's when he grabs Dr. Loomis in the school. When I saw that, I was like, "What the fuck is this? Like, what are they doing?" It's just horrible editing. It's total cash grab, and this is like the result of people crying for more Michael Myers movies, and we got this. And John Carpenter was not happy about this. He's been very vocal about his views on the Halloween movies going after his original 2. But
Um,
yeah, I really didn't like it.
so Danielle Harris, who plays Jamie in these movies, has a podcast. If you ever get a chance to check it out, it's called Talk Scary to Me with Scout Taylor Compton, who will show up later on in this podcast. But their latest episode was a recap of going to the Halloween Ends premiere. So there's some tea in there. I'm not going to spoil it for anybody, but that's a really good podcast. I think that she was awesome as Jamie in this movie. And she was awesome later on down the road in something else that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, she was like I said, she was the best part. I love Donald Pleasence, but I think the Dr. Loomis character is kind of starting to get played out with this movie. And like as we go forward, I think they just didn't give him enough material to, develop that character anymore. But yeah, I don't know. Let's move on to the next one.
Strongest. Where it all began. If you want to get rid of this rage, Michael, go home. Go home!
Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers, released in 1989. This movie was directed by Dominique Othenian Gerard, who did Red Shoe Diaries, a couple episodes of that, and he directed The Omen 4. Again, this movie stars Donald Pleasence, Danielle Harris, and Ellie Cornell. Had a budget of 5.5 million and made 11.5 million dollars. This movie is actually the lowest money making movie in the Halloween series, believe it or not. Swole, tell me about The Revenge.
Just another giant, massive piece of shit. Sorry, my mic was muted there for a minute. It's awful. Once again, the mask and the poster are deceiving. It's not the same mask. It's even worse in this movie. Um, then you bring in that weird subplot with the curse of the thorn, and um, it's really bad. Like it's not good. I can't. I think this is the one where the chase scene through the school. That was a cool scene. She's dressed up like a clown, which is very reminiscent of Michael's Halloween costume from part one. But he's chasing her through the elementary school, and that was a really good scene. I can't remember if that was 4 or 5, but that was a good scene.
That was for this one's the one where she's mute
Oh, that's
and
right, he doesn't
to
speak,
the house.
but
Yeah.
then, like yeah, but, on the poster, it's like even the poster is corny. It says,
Well,
"Michael lives, and this time, they're ready." Like, it's just pure, like I think this came out in what, '89?
1989, yes.
So, they pumped this one out, directly a year after the return of Michael Myers.
Yeah, doing research on this movie, there was no fully written script before they started working on it. So the
It
part with the cult,
you could tell.
yeah, the part with the cult was just added in. They left a lot of loose ends for people going forward to tie them up. Uh, Donald Pleasence was not happy about this movie because if you watch the previous one, it ends with Jamie killing her foster mom. So basically, she's taking the role of like Jason 5,
Right.
but they never expounded on that either. And then in this one, they made it seem like she was stabbed because Michael controls her telepathically.
Weird. Like,
And
did they, like, look into each other's eyes?
yeah, don't get me started on that. Uh, but yeah, it's just the math again is weird. It's a total another cash grab. You know, John Carpenter again was outspoken against this one, saying he wasn't very happy about it. Donald Pleasence didn't like this movie. I think Danielle Harris even came out and said she didn't like this movie at all. They try to get, yeah, I guess a little bit of like some context to why Michael is the way he is. One of the parts I really hate about this movie is that at the end when he gets arrested and put in the jail, they have him in his fucking cell with his mask on.
Yeah.
Like, if like I know this is a movie and we're supposed to suspend belief, but what fucking police station's gonna leave you on with your fucking Halloween mask on?
That's pretty bad. Also,
And
um, I think this movie made a crap ton of movie in video rentals.
yes, and also they kind of like clickbait your ass with the picture. Like she doesn't wear that costume in this movie, which is probably why you thought it was the blur. But they just used the stock footage from the last movie to put in this one, which makes no sense.
It's terrible.
Yeah, it's a horrible movie, and like after this is where like the descent of the series is going, like 4, 5, and the next one we're gonna get into. Let's get into the next turd.
That lived inside of him came from a source too violent, too deadly for you to imagine. It grew inside him, contaminating his soul. It was pure evil.
Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, released in 1995. This movie was directed by Joe Chappelle, who actually went on to direct Phantoms. And Ben Affleck was badass in Phantoms.
He was the bomb in Phantoms, yo.
Starring Donald Pleasence, Paul Rudd making his theatrical debut, Marianne Hagen, and Mitch Ryan. This movie had a budget of $5 million and made $15 million at the box office, which I don't understand how the fuck it made that. But Swell, tell me about The Curse.
Well, it got $10 from me at the box office because I remember going to Sony theaters in Streamwood to see this. I think Paul Rudd is the only redeeming quality of this movie. He plays Tommy Doyle, like grown up. Um, which is weird because we get Anthony Michael Hall as Tommy Doyle later on in the franchise. Um, it's so first of all, this movie compared to Halloween 4 and 5 is The Godfather Part 2. Like, because at least it looks good. It looks like a creepy late 90s Miramax movie, which is exactly what it was. The opening scene where the if I'm not mistaken, the girl is just given birth and she's running away from Michael's. It was a good scene. It was a creepy scene. It was shot really well. The rest of the movie is shit. I'm curious as to what a Quentin Tarantino script would have been like because he wrote the original like treatment for this movie. I'm curious as to what that would have looked like. So who knows? But it's not good, man. Like it doesn't get any better. I think they make Haddonfield look cool, but this movie is not. It's not it, man.
Yeah, totally not it. Like the opening scene was great, and that's supposed to be Jamie's character that ends up passing on. Danielle Harris said she wanted to get reprise her role as they wanted somebody that was 18 years old and she was 17 years old at the time, and she actually went as far as emancipating her parents so she can be an adult to get the role. But they wouldn't meet her demands, and all she wanted was $5,000. Which to me is ridiculous. A lot of drama with the Weinstein brothers on this. They were interfering a shitload during production, which made the thing terrible. It has two endings.
They're terrible. The Weinsteins are terrible.
Yeah, the theoretical endings when Paul Rudd beats the shit out of him with a pipe, and then in the producer's ending, which is fucking horrible. Michael gets stopped by stones or on the floor. Believe it or not, you can look it up on YouTube. It's ridiculous. It makes no sense.
I do think the kills in this were a lot gorier than any
Yeah,
other Halloween movie that's ever existed.
and that's the reason for these sequels is because Mustafa Akkad, who actually got the rights to Halloween after season of The Witch, and he wanted to bring Michael back. Carpenter again did not want this to happen, but he saw profit, which it is making money. So we had these movies. This movie is just it's just a waste of Donald Pleasence because I think he's an excellent actor. I think like I said, his character, and this is the last time we see him. His character kind of you know his arc is just bad. Like he started off as a doctor trying to save people, and then he was starting to go mad, but he wanted to get rid of Michael Myers to stop him from killing. And he kind of did that in the second one. And then, it's the same thing repeating over and over again with these last three. And I didn't enjoy this movie at all. Paul Rudd's character as Tommy Doyle, he plays a creep to
Yeah,
me.
he's a total creep. I feel like you know how J.J. Abrams like gets made fun of for the lens flares that he uses the lens flares in his movies, and like you see it. This movie was shot almost entirely in blacklight. It felt like.
Yeah, and also it had some weird transitions, like even that parts that didn't well, at least a theatrical cut, like even that parts that didn't have anything to do with like Michael, like there's a part where I think Paul Rudd and the girl are talking with the baby, and it does like a slasher like transition from it, which made no sense to what the hell was going on in the story. It's just like it's out there. It's horribly done, and this movie makes the series sit dormant for 7 years. Um, about 7 years, yeah.
Yeah,
Before
it was.
before Extra come out. No, actually, this 3 years it sets dormant. I misspoke. But, speaking of Quentin Tarantino, he did write the screenplay for this that wasn't used. They actually asked Peter Jackson if he would be interested in to direct, and he said no.
Can you imagine like a Halloween movie directed by either Quentin Tarantino or Peter Jackson?
It would have been a lot better. Like,
You
Peter got
think?
wrote the script for, Nightmare on Elm Street. I think Freddy's Dead. He wrote that script that they didn't use and would
Right. We talked about that last week. They didn't use his treatment. He didn't like. I don't know, man. Like the Miramax in the late '90s with the Weinstein's behind it made some weird fucking decisions.
yeah, it's just this is just, to me, all around bad. But
Except
there
for
is no,
except
go
for
ahead.
She's All That. That's a great movie.
Well, what do you call, did they did the, Good Will Hunting. Good Will Hunting was a good movie.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Good Will Hunting was a great movie. Thankfully to Kevin Smith. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But, yeah, there is some light at the end of this tunnel, so let's move on to our next one.
And I need you to be responsible. Do you know what that means?
Responsible.
Responsible.
Don't talk to me about responsible,
I
Mom.
just need this one thing.
Mom, I am not responsible for you. That's it. That's enough. I can't take it, Mom. He's dead. Michael Myers is dead.
Halloween H2O for 20 years after or 20 years later, not Halloween Water like people call it, released in 1998. It's directed by Steve Miner, who's a Chicago boy. He also directed a Friday the 13th sequel, part 2 and 3. He did Warlock, which is actually an underrated movie, Forever Young, Day of the Dead, Lake Placid, and unfortunately, he did the movie Soul Man. This movie stars Jamie Lee Curtis, Adam Arkin, Josh Hartnett, Michelle Williams, and LL Cool J. This movie had a budget of 17 mil and made 75 at the box office. So tell me about H2O.
When did this come out? 98?
Yep, 1998.
So 98, I was soft. It was the summer of 98 because I remember this was a summer release, which is weird. But I was, a 17-year-old kid. And I went with my friends that were obsessed with Halloween and horror movies to see this at the theater. My buddy in his full Michael Myers gear in the theater, but when we were still allowed to do that. Um, so I have some like very pleasant, like fond memories of like going to see this. Um, but if we're gonna talk about stuff, we got to be fair. The mask in this movie is ass too. Michael's hair is weird. The mask is terrible, but it's my favorite. It's like my favorite one of the sequels besides Halloween 2. I thought the script was really, really well done, and the premise was good. She's, she's traumatized, and she's a teacher at a school, but she has a son of her own, and she's overprotective of him. She doesn't want him to go on like the class field trip to, I think it was the Grand Canyon,
Yosemite.
Yosemite. Sorry, I should have known that. Um, but he sneaks away and he stays at school, and Michael tracks her down. He does the rest stop killing to get the car. I think this is one of the better sequels. I liked it, and even when it was cool to put a rapper in a movie, LL Cool J just plays a small role as a security guard, and this was a good sequel.
Yeah, I actually like this movie. I thought it was nicely done. The reason I think it was a good sequel was it had uncredited rewrites by Kevin Williamson, who did the Scream series.
Kevin Williamson knows how to write horror movies. I watched I Know What You Did Last Summer last night. Like he knew his audience when he was writing these things, and I think this was a good sequel.
Totally was. I think it was nicely done. I did find it interesting that John Carpenter actually was approached to direct this movie, and he was actually interested in doing it, but the studio did not want to meet his demands. He asked for $10 million, which was his standard fee, in a three-picture deal. And the reason he asked for that was because he wasn't getting the residuals from Halloween. And Mustafa Akkad, who now owned the rights, basically tell him, "Yeah, we're gonna pass." And so the Weinstein's. So I would kind of well like to see how it was directed if John Carpenter came back, which would have been cool because he would have had Jamie Lee Curtis and him from the original.
Did this come out before or after Ghost of Mars? Because it couldn't have been any worse than Ghost on Mars.
Oh, I do not hate Ghost of Mars. It's a great movie. This came out before Ghost of Mars. Um, but yeah, it wasn't a bad movie. I liked it. I liked the premise of the movie. I like the you know, Josh Hartnett plays a good role in this movie as her son. Jamie Lee Curtis does a good role with Laurie as traumatized and then being a functional alcoholic. It was a good movie. Jamie Lee Curtis didn't like the fact that they were gonna have a sequel to this. She knew there was gonna be a sequel, but she didn't like the fact they were. But money when money's made, how Hollywood tries to get that money out of you, and then we get the result of the next movie.
Trick or treat, motherfucker.
Halloween Resurrection, released in 2002, directed by Rick Rosenthal, who actually directed Halloween 2 in 1981. This movie stars Busta Rhymes, Bianca Kajic, Jamie Lee Curtis in this movie, Thomas Ian Nicholas, and Tyra Banks. It had a budget of $15 million and made 37.6 at the box office. Um, First off, like I said, Jamie Lee Curtis did not like that there was a sequel to H2O. to the point where when they asked her to come back to do a cameo, she said, "I want my character to die." Just to make sure Laurie Strode is not in any more Halloween movies is how much she hated this movie. John Carpenter hated this movie. He came out again and spoke about it. Jamie Lee Curtis came years later and said this movie was a joke. John Carpenter said this movie made him cringe. What about you, Swole? How did it make you feel?
So nostalgia purposes, it was it was fine. It's a terrible movie, but for nostalgia purposes, like I'll watch it every year with the rest of them. There's a scene at the beginning of the movie where there's Michael's in or Laurie's in a mental institution, and one of her like not roommates, but like someone in the same like floor or whatever is obsessed with serial killers, and he can spout off all these facts about serial killers, and he goes through this like spiel, like Jeffrey Dahmer or Ted Bundy, right? And he can tell you all these facts. Well, the opening sequence is like exactly what you talked about, like Laurie dying in the opening sequence, and Michael hands this guy the knife, and he goes, "Michael Myers, 1978, Haddonfield, Illinois." That was a cool scene. After that, all they tried to do was cash in on the popularity of like the Blair Witch Project and found footage movies that had just become like popular at the time by putting like 5 contestants in Michael's childhood home and rigging up cameras. And you could watch it through a stream, and it was just fucking crap. Like the rest of the movie was crap. Once again, I still remember going to see this with my friends at the theater. So for nostalgia purposes, I'll always like love it, but it's a piece of shit. Like it's terrible. It's not a good Michael Myers movie. Yeah.
Totally agree. Like I know we had this talk about the movies in this series, and I don't think this movie was meant to be taken seriously. I think it was what it was. It was a total crash grab. Fucking Busta Rhymes fights with karate or kung fu with Michael Myers at the end.
Once again, it was popular to put rappers in movies
Yeah.
for a small period.
Yeah, I mean, even H2O was guilty of that with LL, but it's not. This movie is cringeworthy. I'm not going to say it isn't.
It totally is.
But there are some parts that are kind of, that part with the Busta Rhymes, even though it's bad, it's so bad it's good. The opening with Jamie Lee Curtis, it was kind of when I first saw it, it was kind of like, wow, they really killed off Laurie Strode. And now I know why, because she didn't want to be in any of the movies.
Well, and it wasn't even so bad except for how they did it. Michael switched masks with the paramedic, like at the end of H2O when like she chops his head off, and Laurie actually didn't chop Michael's head off. She chopped the paramedic's head off. Like, come on, man. That's almost as bad as like, and then he woke up and it was all a dream.
Yes. But, it's funny you mentioned the ending of the previous one because we got this one, but the original ending to this movie was that Michael was going to go to a morgue, wake up, and kill people in the morgue. And Josh Hartnett's character was supposed to come back and eventually go and try to hunt him down for killing Laurie Strode. Continuing that, but when Mustafa Akkad died,
Can you imagine Josh Hartnett coming back and like walking around like the town in California where the private school is with a pitchfork yelling "Evil dies tonight"?
No, there's only one person I can imagine doing that, and we're gonna get to him in a little bit. But Josh Hartnett does. I think Josh Hartnett's a pretty underrated actor in terms of the different roles he can play. He was in 30 Days,
40 Days and 40 Nights.
40 Days, 40 Nights. He also did 30 Days of Night, I think it's called. I actually did
The vampire movie.
Yeah, he did a great role in there.
Yeah.
He's not the greatest actor. He did Hollywood Homicide with Harrison Ford, which wasn't a great movie, but he's not a horrible actor.
Wasn't he in Pearl Harbor too?
Yes, he was in Pearl Harbor. Yeah.
That movie was awful.
I'm sorry. Thinking about it made me laugh. This movie, like I said, this movie wasn't supposed to be taken seriously. It was a cash grab. Yeah, it made money, but it got a reboot. So let's go on to that one.
Behind these eyes, one finds only blackness, the absence of light. These are the eyes of a psychopath.
2008's Halloween remake, directed by Rob Zombie, who also did the Firefly series, House of a Thousand Corpses, Devil's Rejects, and Three from Hell. He did Lords of Salem, and he actually released the 2022 Monsters. This movie stars Malcolm McDowell, Brad Dourif, Dan Farich, William Forsythe, Taylor Maine, who's Michael and the tallest Michael, 6'8", and Sherry Moon Zombie. It had a budget of $15 million and made 80 at the box office. So tell me what you think of this interpretation of Halloween.
So, for the longest time, I hated this version of Halloween. And then I went back and watched it for what it was, right? I stopped trying to compare it to the original and just tried to appreciate it as its own movie. And it's not that bad. It's not that great, but it's not that bad. I think Malcolm McDowell, who obviously is known for Clockwork Orange, was a great replacement for Donald Pleasance as Dr. Loomis. I think he did a really good job, and they kind of made him out to not just be, this guy that everybody loves and was universally loved. He was a creep, right? He cashed in on this stuff, and he wrote a book, and he tried to fix what he screwed up. I think Scout Taylor Compton was really really great as Lori. You bring back Danielle Harris as Annie, right? She played Annie, right?
Yep.
She was really, that was cool, right? That was a nice little hey, let's bring her back and give her some closure. Obviously, the kid that played Michael when he was a child was that same little asshole French kid from Hancock, that movie with Will Smith.
Yeah, that
But,
thing.
I hated him right off the bat, but it almost made you empathize with Michael Myers because of how he was brought up and his stepfather. I don't know if empathize is the right word, but maybe sympathize. I don't know. But his stepdad is played by shit, what's his name?
William Forsythe.
William Forsythe, yeah. And he's a creep. He is a creep in this remake.
Yeah, and William Forsythe is actually a really good actor.
He's a fantastic actor. I love him.
Another actor that doesn't get enough love. Excellent, a Brooklyn actor too.
But he's a creep as the stepdad in this movie.
Yep, and Sherry Moon Zombie actually does a good role as his mom, who unfortunately takes her life in it.
And Rob Zombie's got his own aesthetic, right? He put a lot of 70s rock in this movie, and the aesthetic itself, I really, really dug. But people thought of it too much and compared it too much to the original, and that's why it gets the hate that it does. It's not great, it's not perfect, but it's not as bad as everybody made it out to be.
I totally agree. First off, before even judging the movie, you have to understand who Rob Zombie is. Rob Zombie is a huge fan of horror movies, and I don't think he did a horrible interpretation in this aspect. I mean, his name of his fucking first band was White Zombie due to a Bela Lugosi movie that he watched that was from the 40s, the 30s.
I remember his MTV Cribs, all the horror, all the Herman Munster stuff and horror movie stuff in his house. If you want to talk about dudes that love horror movies, Rob Zombie is the epitome.
Yeah, I saw that episode. I think he owned every horror movie that was on DVD at the time, that he could get that was distributed. He could get, which I think is crazy. So knowing that, I didn't really have an issue with this interpretation. The only problem I had was really when Michael escapes the psychiatric. The part where the guys bring the girl in there to have sex. Well, Michael, that made no fucking sense to me. I know Rob Zombie goes for the shocking stuff, and that part just didn't make any sense to me.
I think you're mad because he killed Danny Trejo. That's why you're mad. I know you. We talk every day. You're one of my best friends. You're mad because they killed Danny Trejo. Just admit it. Let's get it out there right now.
Actually, it's funny you say that because when I was researching this, the studio didn't like that he killed Danny Trejo.
Because Danny Trejo was nice to him.
And that
he was nice to him in the mental institution. He was like, no, he doesn't like it when you touch his masks. Leave him alone. Stop messing with him. You know what? I've been here for 30 years. Get out of here. Right? He's like, I've been taking this care of this kid for 30 years. Leave him alone and get out of here.
And I think Rob Zombie said the reason he left it in there was to show that Michael had no compassion or anything or empathy for anybody, which is great.
I get it. But
Wait,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
The scene after that, where he kills the truck driver that's taking a dump reading a porno mag was really, really funny and really, really well done. Like
Yes, it
he's
totally
like,
was.
I got a I got a I got a burrito grande that's been stewing up, and he goes in to take a dump, and Michael comes in with like muddy slides on and like no socks and shoes, and he's banging on the door while this guy's reading a porno mag taking a dump. Like just pure 70s, like total vibe. Like yeah, this movie gets so much hate it doesn't deserve.
It totally does, and that part, cracks me up too when that dude almost whoops his ass too. One thing I do like about this is that the person who plays, Michael Myers, Taylor Maine, is 6'8" and very imposing.
He also played Sabretooth in the X-Men series.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, and
he was a wrestler in WCW for a while, I think.
oh, was he?
I think so. Tyler Maine.
Tyler Maine. Tyler, I called him Taylor. I don't know why. I mean, I have in my notes as Taylor. My bad. But yeah, this movie's not bad. It's a nice little vision of Rob Zombie. It was actually enjoyable. Do I hate it? No. Should you hate it? No. It's his own interpretation of the Halloween series, and I think he did a pretty decent job. I love Malcolm McDowell. I love him in all his movies.
Yeah, no, like make your like if you haven't seen this movie, if you're listening to this pod or watching this and you haven't watched Rob Zombie's Halloween strictly out of like what you've heard, make your own assumption and watch it for yourself because it's not terrible. Now, be prepared because it's the goriest fucking Halloween movie you'll ever see.
Yes, definitely on that. He's
And
really known for his gore.
it's intense. There like some of the kill scenes and some of the chase scenes are intense. Um, but it's make your own assumption. Watch this if you haven't already.
Yeah, totally check it out. And we forgot to mention, well, we did in the opening when I said who's starring it, but Brad Dourif's in this movie. And for those who don't know who Brad Dourif by name, he's the voice of Chucky, and he's also a horror movie icon, in my opinion. He's done a lot of movies. Exorcist 3 is another one. He's just a great character actor in horror movies. Very, very his mannerisms and his voice are what he's known for. And he does an excellent job in this movie too as a sheriff.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, Scout Taylor Compton was kind of hot in this movie, if I'm just being honest.
That's why you like her. No. No, but yeah, check this movie out if you haven't seen it. But let's move on to our next one.
You a giant? Can we be friends?
Mark, come on, don't talk to strangers.
Bye.
Halloween 2 dropped in 2009, directed by Rob Zombie, bringing back the cast of Malcolm McDowell, Brad Dourif, Sherry Moon Zombie, Tyler Maine, and Danielle Harris. I have his name as Tyler in here. This movie had a box office of $39.4 million, and it was on a budget of $15 million. To start this one off, this is not a good movie in my opinion. I know people consider this a great movie. I do not think it's a great movie. And after doing research on this, I understand why it was not a great movie. Rob Zombie hated working with the Weinsteins. He hated it so much in the previous movie. He had such a bad experience that when he got done with the first Halloween, he said, well, it can't be any worse than this. And then when he did this movie, he's like, fuck this, I'm done. To the point when they were actually touring and, doing publicity for this movie, he announced, I'm not coming back to the series. So I understand that there's a lot of like a psychological stuff in here that to me is weird. The part with the horse and the mom, it's strange. I also found it funny that when people were referencing this movie, there's a part where they're actually running in the hospital, and people are like, "Oh, he's throwing homage to the second Halloween." Rob Zombie came out and said, "Oh no, I hate Halloween 2. It's shit." Well, I hate to tell you, Rob, this movie's shit, really bad. And I like Rob Zombie stuff. This movie's just horrible. They offered John Carpenter a cameo, and he said, "Hell no." Just not. I mean, I'm just not a fan of this movie. What about you, Saul?
So once again, the movie starts off strong in the hospital with Laurie in there, like the same night. And there's a song playing by a band called the Moody Blues. And the song is called Nights in White Satin. And it's probably my father's favorite song, like one of my father's favorite songs in the whole world. So much that I was named after the lead singer of that band. And I thought the movie started off really strong, but then it goes into this weird fucking cosmic connection and the white horse and Michael's mother, and it was bizarre, and it sucks. This movie sucks, Yump. Like, it's not good. Like, and I know you talked about how like Rob Zombie's like, I'm not coming back. There were rumors of him doing Halloween 3D because that was right at the time that 3D movies like were taking off. Stuff was coming out in the theaters in 3D, and 3D technology had evolved, and they were going to do a Halloween 3D. And I thought to myself, like, how badass would that be? Like Halloween in 3D. And then I saw this. I'm like, this movie fucking blows. I don't want to see another movie from Rob Zombie if this is what he's going to do.
Yeah, totally agree. And great that you brought that up because that's what the Weinsteins had planned. But when this movie received the backlash it did, they decided to shelve it. And speaking of Nights in White Satin, for the movie Stealth, Glenn Hughes actually did a cover of that song with Frashanti and Chad Smith on drums, which is actually a pretty decent version.
Interesting. I will have to check that out because, like I said, the lead singer of the Moody Blues is Justin Hayward. I am Justin. I hate. Oh God, I can't believe you got. I'm Justin Edward. I hate my middle name. But I was named after the lead singer of the Moody Blues.
You know, we forgot to mention, but I forget which movie it is exactly, but they do give Michael's full name. His middle name is Audrey. Michael Audrey Myers. It's one of the I'm
Drake.
guessing Halloween
Michael
4.
Drake.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's but yeah, this movie wasn't that great. The only aspect I did like was that Rob Zombie said he based Sam Lewis's character, well, Sam Lewis, the character of Sam Lewis that Malcolm McDowell plays after Dr. Phil, which shows
Which
Dr.
is which makes perfect sense because he's like I said in the previous movie, he's a scumbag. Like he was just trying to make a buck, which is exactly what Dr. Phil tries to do.
Yeah, this movie is not that great. And, you know, the Halloween series sat dormant for 9 years. And we got our next one coming up.
Little fun fact about this remake though. Um Shit, what was I gonna say? I forgot what I was gonna say.
Well, Danielle Harris is in this movie again. And this is her fourth time in the Halloween series, and she actually dies in this one. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
no, I remember what I was gonna say. I'm sorry, like we talked about on the Kevin Smith episode, this is a Weinstein movie. So the rights to this movie were not available to buy digitally for a long time. And all of a sudden, randomly last month, it popped up where you could buy it on iTunes and Vudu and Movies Anywhere. So the rights to this movie must have resorted back to another company that the Weinsteins don't have control over. And now you can buy this movie digitally where you couldn't before because it bothered me because just like Dogma, I own all the Halloween movies digitally except for this one. And it bothered me that my set was incomplete. So now it's available to purchase. I don't know why you would, unless you're a weirdo like me, but now you can purchase it.
I was actually going to say I'm not going to buy it, but thank you for telling us. And I love that part that you added. No, I don't know why you would. Like, I wouldn't buy this movie. I've seen it twice. Once but when it first came out, and once just to watch it again. Even when I watched it the second time, I was like, "This movie's horrible."
Oh, same.
Um,
And I'll probably never watch it again unless I'm like, oh, you know what? I should just rewatch through all of them. But you've seen my movie collection. If it's part of like a saga or a franchise, then I got to have the complete one. Like even those god awful Star Wars sequels, Rise of the Skywalker, like I own them because it's part of something. So
oh, totally get it. I mean, like we're movie buffs. That's the things we do. But let's move on to the next one.
And from the horrors you experienced.
There's nothing to learn. There are no new insights or discoveries.
So is he real?
Who?
The boogeyman. I read you quoted.
You don't believe in the boogeyman?
I believe in Michael Myers, a deranged serial killer, but the boogeyman, no.
Well, you should.
Halloween 2018, directed by David Gordon Green, who also directed The Pineapple Express, Stronger, and The Sitter. This movie stars Jamie Lee Curtis coming back as Laurie Strode, Judy Greer, Will Patton, and Andy Matchik. I had a budget of $15 million and made a whopping $255.6 million at the box office. That's of today, it's the most profitable Halloween movie in the series. For this one, so this movie, like when I first saw it, I thought it was okay, and then when I rewatched it, I found like a better admiration for this movie. I think this is probably my second favorite movie in the series. I love the way it's shot. I love the character of how Lori is made as she's completely distraught. They made her an alcoholic. The whole night that traumatized her, her relationship with her kids. I love that aspect of the movie. It does have some corny parts, yes, but I think he did it beautifully done. In this movie as a rendition of it. What do you think?
So I'm kind of right there with you. Like the complaints that I have about this movie are really small, and I'll get into them. But like I think you're right. First of all, the movie looks absolutely gorgeous. The lighting in some of the scenes in this movie, absolutely fantastic. Um, you use Michael like there's. I've said this before, but the scene with the motion lights in the backyard to me is one of the best scenes in any horror movie that I've ever seen. Because motion lights weren't around like when the original Halloween was being made, right? And they used the motion lights in a really creepy way, and I really, really like it. Um, I love Will Patton. I've always loved movies that he's in, so I love like bringing him in here as a character. And I'm not disagreeing with you that this is a fantastic sequel and one of the best. What I don't like is that it disregards anything else that was done before. Halloween 2 is no longer canon in because of this movie, right? And it's not the biggest deal, but I love Halloween 2. Despite how Rob Zombie feels and despite how Rick Rosenthal feels, like I love Halloween 2 and this kind of just disregards it. What I do love is that because they disregard it, Lori and Michael are no longer brother and sister. And they discuss that in this movie. Like they bring it up in this movie. Like, that was just a story. That's not true.
Yeah, and I think it takes a lot of unnecessary shots at Halloween too, which I don't get because going forward, David Gordon Green can't really talk shit no more. That's just my opinion.
Whatever do you mean, Yump?
We're gonna get to it, but I did find it kind of cool that Jake Gyllenhaal actually convinced Jamie Lee Curtis to come back to reprise her role. He's like, she calls him her honorary godson. They're very close, and when they heard this movie was being made after the Weinstein Company came out with the 3D aspect that got shelved, thank God, David Gordon Green decided he wanted to do this, and they were actually trying to feel her out a little bit. And when she got the script for it, he told her to go, try it out. And she came back and she actually liked this movie. She does a good adaptation. She liked H2O as well, but she kind of felt like, this is living up to the original. That's a quote from her.
Yeah, and I don't disagree at all. One thing that bothers me, and it's so stupid, but so Lori is this traumatized alcoholic mother and grandma, right? In this series, but her granddaughter Allison, right, is her name in the series. She refers to her throughout the whole movie as grandmother, like not grandma, not gram. Like, did you call grandmother about coming to my graduation dinner? And it's so weird. It's such a weird piece of dialogue to say the whole word grandmother.
Maybe she's British.
She's not. She's not. Um, but I do love some of the scenes that are in this movie, the way it's written. Um, once again, the lighting in this movie is absolutely fantastic. From the use of the police lights when you get the twist with the doctor, like his new doctor. And I know they referred to him as the new Loomis when they were doing reviews for this movie. He's not fucking Dr. Loomis, or he's never going to be Dr. Loomis. But I really, really enjoyed the way this movie was made. And I had such high hopes for the way that the franchise was going to go because I enjoyed this movie and I was really, really excited for the way that it could have been.
Yeah, so did I. I had really high hopes for this franchise. Even though Michael Myers, he lives in this movie with the burning down the house, like it was still like it got me kind of pumped to see what was going to happen next.
Yeah, because Lori was just a badass. I'm like, what's going to happen next? And then take it away, Yump.
Yeah, so we got this movie.
He's got no choice but to emerge. He is an apex predator. When he surfaces, there will be no pause. There will be no empathy. This ends when Michael is dead. Michael Myers will be executed tonight, and it will not go without witness. We need all of you. Evil dies tonight.
Evil dies tonight.
Halloween Kills, released in 2021, directed by David Gordon Green. Again, starring Jamie Lee Curtis, Will Patton, Anita Machek, Judy Greer, and Anthony Michael Hall. This movie had a budget of $20 million and a box office of $131.6 million. Swole, you like to give me shit about this movie. Tell me about Halloween Kills.
So, first of all, I think the movie starts off excellent, right? Just like the next movie in the series, it starts off fucking excellent. It's a flashback to that night in 1978, right? The original Halloween. It's a flashback, and Will Patton is a young cop, right? And I love the opening to this movie, and I get what they were trying to do with Evil Dies Tonight, especially with the political climate of America and the mob mentality. Like, I get it. It was just so fucking dumb. Like, it was dumb, Yump. Like, there's a scene in the end of Halloween Kills where Michael is in the street and he's lit up by car headlights, and the mob comes to kill him. And the one dude's got a baseball bat, and the one dude's got a hockey stick. And if you look closely, the lady has a fucking iron in her hand. There is a scene where she has an iron at the beating of Michael Myers. Now, the iron's not plugged in. Not that it matters if it was plugged in, what it would do, but she's got an iron to beat Michael Myers to death with, right? And as they're beating him, he just gets stronger, right? Like, at first he winces in pain and he keels over, but then he just gets stronger. And he shows up and he kills her daughter at the end credits. Like, what the fuck happened? Where did we go wrong with this movie? I wanted to love this movie so bad. I went to the theater the night it came out, just like I did with all the other ones, and it sucked. I give you shit all the time because I don't think it's as bad as you make it out to be, but it sucks.
It's totally bad. Now, is this the worst in the series? Hell no. But there's just watching this movie back, and I'm not gonna lie, I went in with an open mind because the next movie we are gonna talk about really pissed me off. I'm like, well, maybe this wasn't as bad, and it's bad. There's just certain plot holes that I didn't like. Even like reading about it, Will Patton thought he was dead. He fucking got stabbed by the doctor in the last movie. He thought he was dead, and his character was dead, but somehow he comes back to life in this. Okay, I do like the aspect that they have Will Patton's character as a person who arrested Michael. That's excellent. The way it was great. But going on from that, it's a fucking turd going lower. I understand what they were doing with the mob mentality, and actually in Halloween 2, which Gordon Green likes to shit on, they actually had that aspect a little bit in there. There's parts where they're driving around the city and Dr. Loomis is saying they're pissed off because he's killing people, which is totally fine. I understand what you're going for there. The part where the mob scenes is where it got me. The first part with the fucking firefighters is what got me because this guy is killing firefighters one-on-one. They're coming at him one-on-one when that's not realistic in terms of, and I know it's a movie, but you're seeing your other firefighters get killed. You're going one-on-one against him. The same thing with the mob. You circle him and then you go in one-on-one while he's killing the shit out of people.
With an iron.
Yes, just go in there and fucking jump on him like there's 30 of you. And then the ending, when he kills Judy Greer's character, the fucking police are outside. They're not outside. They're in the bottom first floor. How did they not hear her screaming as he's stabbing her? That's the part that makes no sense. It's not me just nitpicking. It's just like common sense. Like
I know you have to suspend disbelief for some of this shit, but there's some stuff where it's just gotta make sense.
Yes, and I give Evil Dies Tonight the quote a lot of shit, but Anthony Michael Hall is probably one of the best parts of this movie. Jamie Lee Curtis, like I know they were trying to do a better version of the second one, which they didn't. She's mostly in the hospital, and she's kind of wasted here.
Yeah, her daughter and her granddaughter take over like the mantle of like the Laurie Strode role, like in this movie.
Yeah, and Anthony Michael Hall is great when his rambling and whatnot. I actually like the sheriff in this movie as well. But yeah, it's just not good. There's no way another way to
bad. And the first 10 minutes were so promising. So promising.
Yeah, especially even the part where she's screaming, "Burn, let him burn." That's actually Will was supposed to be used in the original Halloween 2. The original Halloween 2, Placence was supposed to say that when he somehow escapes being blown up from the fire and they go to try to water down the hospital and he says that, let him burn, let him burn. But they use that for this, which I thought was cool. But yeah, it's not really redeeming. And I know what he was going for, but it's just a total miss here. And then we're gonna get this, the next one.
You brought me in. You invited me.
But you're the one to blame. If I can't have her, no one will. You want to help Allison, let her live her life. She has me now.
Halloween Ends 2022, directed by David Gordon Green again, starring Jamie Lee Curtis, Will Patton, Anita Machak, Rohan Campbell, and Rick Moose. This movie had a budget of $33 million. And so far, as of today, it's made 82 at the box office. So I'll get to it.
First of all, Yumper, one of my best friends in the whole world. Thank you for giving me this platform to talk about this movie. I'm just going to go into a little bit of a story here because we're only at 116, right? We're trying to keep this at a decent time, but I'm going to go on a rant here.
You have more than enough time for this.
First of all, this rant is dedicated to our boy Aloha Mr. Hand because he was very, very excited to hear my rant about this. So this came out last Thursday. Before I got COVID. And I went to the 8:00 showing at Oakbrook, and I was very, very excited. I left work like 10 minutes early because I wanted to make sure I was there on time. My showing was at 8:00. I was done at work at 8. So I left work at like 7:50 to make sure I could get over there and get my zero sugar drink because we're doing the 108 weight loss challenge. Shout out 108. And I sit down and the movie opens up. And once again, all these movies were shot very, very well. Like the visual look, they all looked great, right? And the opening scene of this movie is this kid riding his bike, and some shit happens. And the movie's only been out for a week, so I don't want to spoil it. But some shit happens, and the first 10 minutes of this movie were absolutely fantastic. And I'm very, very excited. I'm like, holy shit! I text the Tainted Glove group. I'm really, really excited for you guys to see the first 10 minutes of this film. And then I sat there and I'm watching the movie, and about 45 minutes in, I'm like, this is the biggest piece of shit I have ever seen. This movie was horrible. I sat in a seat where no one else could see me. So I decided to watch the Bears play the Commanders on my phone during this game. And I said this on our first episode in my final closing thought. Don't be that asshole on your phone during a movie. But this movie was so bad that I had to watch the Bears game during it. Michael Myers is hardly in this movie. His screen time is like 10 minutes and like 57 seconds. And I know a lot of people went back to the 1978 original Halloween, and Michael was only on screen for a total of like 9 minutes and 57 seconds. Don't you ever fucking compare this movie to the 1978 Halloween, because this movie is the biggest piece of shit horror movie I've ever seen. Michael's hardly in it, and they introduced this new character. What was his name? Corey. And Lori, who we've known from the first two movies in this trilogy as like this grizzled, like traumatized warrior, is baking a fucking pumpkin pie to celebrate Halloween with her granddaughter because she has just decided to live her life. No therapy, no nothing. She just decided that she's done living in Michael Myers' shadow. The Shape. The greatest fucking serial killer in horror movie history. She decided that she's no longer traumatized by it, and she's baking a fucking pumpkin pie and decorating for Halloween so her granddaughter, Allison, can take a fucking pie with her to work, and she's trying to help her figure out what costume to wear. Meanwhile, this new character is introduced, that he has some traumatic shit happen to him, and he's like this town like pariah, right? Everybody hates him in the town, and he's getting fucking bullied by the band geeks. They didn't pick the fucking football team. They didn't pick the jocks. They picked fucking band geeks to bully this kid. Now this kid's obviously out of high school and he was supposed to be going to college, and he's gonna let fucking 17-year-old band geeks bully him. So Lori decides she's gonna set up her granddaughter with this kid that's getting bullied by fucking band geeks. I gotta say it one more time, Yumper. Band geeks.
That aspect in the movie was fucking stupid. So I'm gonna start this off by saying this. I don't consider myself a movie snob. I pretty much go into movies open minded. If I don't like it, you can like what you like. But after watching this movie twice and seeing people come out and tell me this movie is a cult classic, this movie is so great, this movie is the second best in the series, if not better than the original, what the fuck are you smoking? Like, there are parts of this movie that make no sense. If the story feels completely rushed, it opened up pretty fine. The beginning of it was I was want to see how he was going to tie it together. There's just so many parts in this movie that make no fucking sense. The part where the home that Corey goes to, where he sleeps on the floor, has a spot there from something that happened that's still there 5 years after the incident, which makes no sense. Why the fuck wasn't that cleaned up? That part didn't make sense to me. Michael Myers apparently is telepathic now. I mean, well, they kind of established that earlier, but apparently he can look into your eyes and tell you what kind of person you are.
He fucking gazed into his eyes like fucking Frodo and Samwise in that Lord of the Rings scene. He gazed into his eyes and he could fucking see his past. And it was the dumbest shit I've ever seen. Oh.
That part was horrible. Jamie Lee Curtis is, like you said, her character is completely normal now, even though she had no therapy. Allison is now a horn dog and just basically falls in love with somebody who's fucking weird. Like, dude comes to her house and blows blood on him, and they go upstairs and they have sex. Like
I mean, we've all been there, but like,
yeah, I mean, I guess, but the only good thing about this movie is Nick Castle's in it, and anybody who knows who Nick Castle is, he was the original Michael Myers.
his cameo was pretty awesome too.
His cameo is great. He does the breathing for all the three movie. He does Michael Myers' breathing, and his he does so, and all they know he does his breathing for his sound, which I think is awesome that they brought the original actor back.
Oh, also, Michael lives in the fucking Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cave in the sewer. Michael lives in the fucking sewer in the Ninja Turtles lair.
I'm gonna get to that in a second, but the character that is played, I can't think of his name off the top of my head. Pete. He's Rick Moose's character, who is Corey's stepdad, is my favorite character because one, he's really nice, and two, he was watching fucking Hard Target with John Claude Van Damme with headphones on, and when I saw that, I got very excited. I'm like, this is my kind of dude, and then something happened. But yeah, that was the fact that Michael lives in a fucking sewer. The fact that he lets Corey live, like, it makes no sense. The part I'm gonna spoil a little bit. There's a part where Corey and Michael fight for Michael's mask.
He lets him take it.
He lets him take it, and then he lays on the floor and sits up like the fucking Undertaker in a WWF match. This movie's horrible. I don't care what anybody says. It's horribly done. The David Gordon Green, I don't know what he was trying to go for with story. Maybe he tried to establish like a Friday the 13th new killer in here, which he did horribly. The story again feels rushed. I think Jamie Lee Curtis was totally wasted this movie. Will Patton, I understand what they were doing with him. He's got a new look on life because he lived, which is fine. But everything else about this movie is just bad. It was not enjoyable. So please stop with saying this movie is the greatest of the franchise, because it isn't. It's not even the second greatest. This movie's a piece of shit. I would rather watch The Curse of Michael Myers again than watch this again. And that movie was bad. The problem with this movie is
What would you rather watch? A Beautiful Mind or Halloween Ends?
A Beautiful Mind, because
That's how bad this movie is.
yeah, it's just not enjoyable. And the thing is, A Beautiful Mind at least got some Oscar, recognition for it. This movie tries to take itself too seriously, and it isn't that good. And going forward, David Gordon Green is doing a remake of The Exorcist, and now I'm kind of worried about how that's going to turn out.
I'm scared shitless that it's going to be like this.
And that's I'm sorry. It's just like this movie's just bad, and I know people are saying, "Oh, it wasn't that bad." Like that's fine. You can like it, but don't tell me if you take it for as a slasher, okay. But if you tell me this is a great ending to the last two in the series, it's not. The only good thing is Jamie Lee Curtis has said she's not coming back at all. She has that in writing. But even the son of Mustafa Akkad, he produced this movie, and they tell him, "So is this it?" And he joked and said, "Oh, well, my dad always said make 22." If they make another Halloween movie, I'm probably not going to see it because if it's shit like this, I don't need to see anything else like that.
I'll have like I can't say that I won't because like I watch this, but like I'm gonna have to see a really good trailer like for me to be like, okay, cool. Like this was that bad. Like I absolutely despise this movie. I despise how it ends. The two things that like if I gotta say something positive about it are the first 10 minutes when the tragedy happens. And I thought that Corey's scarecrow mask was creepy.
Well, it was homage to the first one.
Right.
Fine. I mean, they
Now,
they're they were homages are in here, but
there are rumors out there that the original ending of this movie was supposed to be there was a silver shamrock logo on Michael's mask, and that's why he did what he did because of the mask, and then that would have paid homage to Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, which would have been a cooler ending than this.
definitely. I would have welcomed that because of all the shit Halloween 3 this is another thing too. Halloween 3 gets a lot of shit, but Halloween 3 is 10 times better than this movie. It actually has an original story.
Absolutely.
This movie
Absolutely. If that movie would have just been called Season of the Witch instead of Halloween 3 Season of the Witch or Silver Shamrock, like that movie wouldn't get the shit that it gets now. But because Michael's not in it and it was called a Halloween movie, people think it's a shitty movie and it's not a shitty movie at all.
No, it's just it's what Carpenter wanted this series to be, and
And technically, Michael Myers is in Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. He's on the TV at the bar
in the
that the
commercial.
the one dude is drinking at.
Yeah, they played the original Halloween trailer. Uh, all I can say is for these movies going forward, the only thing that gives me peace is that John Carpenter came out and said, "The only good thing I like about new Halloween movies being made is that I get a new check in the mail." Because that's all it is now.
And to be fair, that dude should get whatever money he can because this was his idea. This was his screenplay. And companies have made millions of dollars on merchandising for this movie, billions of dollars on merchandising for this movie at the box office. Like he can get what he can get and own whatever he wants. He's John fucking Carpenter.
Yeah, and my goodness, can't believe they ended it this way. But I mean, it's what it is. What it is.
It's terrible. It's awful. And like I I saw it before any of our else in our group saw it, and I was patiently waiting for you to watch it on Friday night. So like I thought maybe I was just being too harsh and too judgmental, but then I got your opinion on it, and I was like, okay, cool. It wasn't just me.
Like it's kind of crazy because even we have different tastes within our group, the Tainted Glove group, and Fidz is more of a artsy. He likes art and in film, which is great. That's his aspect. He loves. Fidz even said this movie was horrible. So this movie's bad. If all three of us are agreeing on this,
Terrible.
yeah,
I can't believe it.
I can't stress anymore on it. Like it is what it is, but it's a complete piece of shit. I give it a 0, as my grandmother would say for any movie that she didn't like. A 0. It's what I give, a 0.
I'm gonna give it a -4.
Um, it was bad. Me and my wife watched it, and even she was like, "This movie is fucking horrible." When she was in the middle of it, I, I don't know. I don't know what he was trying to do.
I
So
can't believe you watched it twice.
yeah, I watched it again to see, if it was as bad as I thought, because maybe I was too harsh on it, and I should have been harsher on it. Um, David Gordon Green, you got a lot of work ahead of you, man. And if The Exorcist is, The Exorcist was nominated for Oscars. If you ruin that, I don't know. I think this movie made money, and there's probably gonna be another sequel, which I don't know how they're gonna do a sequel after this.
This trilogy's done. It won't be a sequel. It'll be a reboot. It'll be a total new telling of it.
How many times are you gonna reboot the same story? Like, it's been
Well, I
rebooted
mean,
3 times.
we say that, but like, I mean, how many different versions of Batman are there? Not that I'm complaining, but
Yeah, but
like if it makes money, they'll do it.
every version is kind of a different like, in Burton's version, Bruce Wayne is Batman already. Even in Schumacher, he's already Batman. And when we go to Christopher Nolan, that's where the origin story tells of how he became Batman, which is great. And then even in the newer one with Patterson, he's been Batman. So it's those movies actually they don't start with the same retelling. They're just different aspects of when Batman's life or different times in Batman's life
I
and
don't
the character's life.
I don't disagree with you, but if like I don't want to say the proof is in the pudding because the pudding here fucking sucks and I don't want any part of it. But like if like numbers don't lie. If a movie makes money, they're gonna make another one. The character sells, people will go see it. He's recognizable and people love him. Just like I know we talked about this last week or 2 weeks ago on our last episode. Like Freddy Krueger movies, like if they did another one, people would go see it. The backlash would be terrible. And I've heard rumors now that Robert Englund and Heather Langenkamp want to get together for one more go at it. Like
Yeah, I can remember.
the character makes money. Um and they'll do it. They'll figure out a way. Like we thought it would be done after the Rob Zombie debacle in Halloween 2 or H2. Like they'll find a way to reboot this and retell the story and it'll be done and people will watch it.
And
Like
that's why, like, when you say, I think Michael started off so strong. Like the story of Halloween, like as a character, as an icon. He's an icon. But his story, like his character has been treated so poorly. Like even Pinhead, Doug Bradley's character has gotten better treatment than the Michael Myers character.
I don't disagree with you at all. Like I don't disagree with you at all on that. But there's something about that mask. There's something about that music that like even like I don't know if you ever heard Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross's like version of some of the score that they released. I think it was like 3 years ago or 4 years ago. But the music and the mask are iconic, and people will pay money to go see it, especially if it's violent and it's loud. Like I knew this movie was gonna suck. I didn't think it was gonna suck as bad as it did when I paid my money to go see it last week, but it sucks.
Yeah, and to put a bow on this review, I guess we can best, say it in the words of our good friend of the show, Richard Roper, Halloween ends, and we can only hope it really does.
Yes. Which will bring us eventually this will bring me into my final thought. But let's go to what's next first.
Yes. So before we get to Swole's final thought with that beautiful picture,
You
we're gonna
skipped
go.
the coming soon slide?
We didn't have a coming to slide.
Okay.
It's okay. Um. Anyway, yeah, I didn't see it in there. It's all good though. So, going into coming soon, uh, what we're going to be doing this time is we're going to switch it up a little bit. We're going to go to one of the best dialogue writers in movie history, in my opinion, Quentin Tarantino movies.
I started my rewatch of his movies last night with Inglorious Bastards, and I did Pulp Fiction while I was sick as well. So I'm revisiting his catalog now, and good lord, we're gonna have some good conversation because that dude can make a movie, man.
Definitely. Tarantino, I think Tarantino is held on a pedestal in certain aspects, but he's well worth a lot of his, he deserves it. A lot of his movies are very good. His dialogue is what he's known for. His style of shooting is very good. He's a good storyteller. And it's going to be a fun episode with that one. So I'm looking forward to that in our next episode. Before Swole gets to his final thought, just want to say, thanks for listening for all of us. Welcome to Magnificent Stan, to coming to the Tainted Glove Network. We're happy to have him. Thank you, everybody who's been watching the 31 Days of Horror. It's a lot of work, but it's been a lot of fun. Hopefully, you watch some of the movies I've been putting out. I got some of the more known movies coming out this week and up until Halloween, so I'll be releasing those. And pretty much, thanks again. With that, Swell, let's hear your final thought.
So, a couple things. One, I want to reiterate: welcome to Brian, Magnificent Stan, for joining the Tainted Glove family. We're a small, tight knit group, so for us to invite him in is a big deal to us. We know what kind of person he is. Also, I want to thank Yumper for making those 31 Days of Halloween movies or horror movies. You've been killing it. You put one of mine in there, which was another Kevin Williamson movie, The Faculty. I think he wrote and directed that. I think that was his directorial debut.
Robert Rodriguez.
Oh, that was a Robert Rodriguez movie, yeah. But Kevin Williamson definitely wrote it. And my final thought kind of brings me back to Halloween Ends. I have already had my rant, but that trilogy has disappointed me so much. And I am going to officially retire Evil Dies Tonight Easter eggs brought into every episode of Yumper and Svo. So that is my gift to Yumper. I will be retiring the Evil Dies Tonight Easter egg because it was awful. And I was so disappointed in it. And I love Michael. Yeah, that's my final thought. So no more Evil Dies Tonight, but thank you for watching or listening. However you support us, follow us on our YouTube channel, The Tainted Glove. Follow us on Twitter, interact with us on Twitter. We're bringing back the Twitter question next week. I know it's been a couple episodes since we've had it, but we brought it back for next week. We always try to share your thoughts in our PowerPoint. So until we see you in 2 weeks, have a good Halloween, everybody. We love you. Deuces.
Thank you for listening to Yump and Svo at the Show podcast, a Tainted Glove production.
See you in your dreams. Oh, come back anytime. Bring your friends.